and I'm a collaborator with this project. Yabo Thompson. First of all, I just want to recognise and acknowledge our First Peoples and to thank them for us being here today on their land. Housekeeping, so toilets out here and emergency exit out here. And our volunteers will serve you the tea and coffee and refreshments at break. And I now will introduce Ian Whitehouse. And Ian is a senior business advisor, CEO and managing director of digital coaching and consultancy. So I hope you will enjoy, and we have another session after break with Frankie Forsyth, who is a business owner and consultant, and we'll talk further from the conversation we'll have first of all. Yeah. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Yabo. Firstly, good morning and welcome. Our IT man will have to move the camera backwards and forwards. I apologise. I like to sit at the same level as you normally, but so that I can see all of you this morning, I'll stand like this for a little bit, then we'll sit down. Yeah, so what I said was I normally like to sit at your level so we can have a table conversation, but this morning I'll stand a little bit for a while so that I can see all of you, because that's important to me and to you. So my session this morning is make a job, start a business. I know how hard it is to actually find a job, whether you're younger, whether you're middle or older. I know how hard it is to find a job, and I have found that one of the ways to solve that problem is to start a business. Just like you, a little bit different. I came to Tasmania 31 years ago from New South Wales and knew nobody. My wife was 7 months pregnant. I had 2 dogs, 1 block of land, no job, and interest rates were 20%. So I had to work out how I could feed myself and feed my new son, who arrived 2 months after we got here. So we had some challenges, and what I'd like to do is share some of my experiences about how we overcame those challenges to create a job. And now I run a number of companies, very successful companies, and I would like to share some of that insight with you today if you're considering starting your own business.
yaanuma dhufee baatii lama booda dhalatte akkamittiin ijoollee ta'e mucaa ta'e nyaachisaa fi akkamittiin jaartiitti yaadu fi mana jiraachisa kana hundaan yaaduu ture sanii dalagaa eegalee amma kaampaanii meeqaan qabu yoo na dhageeffattan isiniif himaa akka.
One of the things I've learnt over a very long time, because I've lived overseas, I've worked overseas. My wife was born in another country and came to Australia when she was a small child, is that it doesn't matter where you come from. You always have very strong assets that you bring with you. So your strong cultural connections, your strong family connections, but you also bring with you your own ideas. And when you start a business, it's very important that you bring your own ideas whilst understanding some of the rules or the requirements of the country that you're going to start your business in. Yeah. So for more than 18 years, I have worked in China. So I go to China 2 or 3 times each year. And over time, I've learnt a lot about how to do business and how to develop friendships and professional relationships. To the point now, when I go to China, my brain goes from Western thinking to Eastern thinking. I can't explain why, but I find myself adapting to their culture and their way of doing business. You are now in Australia, and what I'd like to do is help you to also make that adjustment from your own cultural perspective, from your own country's perspective, and help you to understand how we can do business in Australia and more particularly in Tasmania. Please. Yeah. So we're just going to wait 1 minute. We have a few more visitors, which is lovely. And then I have a very important question for you all. Yeah, more comfortable. All good, no problem. All right, so I've got a very important question for you. So I have a few slides. I don't have a lot of slides, but I have a very important question for you. Who would like to start their own business? One, two. Three. I love it when the hand goes up. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe. 8. Okay. Thank you so much. It's important that I have that sort of understanding, because what I'm going to ask you now is, if you feel comfortable, would you like to share what sort of business you'd like to start? So would anybody like to share what sort of business they're thinking about. It doesn't have to be the final business, but it might be just an idea you have. Yes?
Some people say it's like a restaurant.
An Ethiopian restaurant?
Yeah, and they also like a coffee shop
Coffee shop?
and like bring stuff from back home from Africa and sell it here.
Okay, so trade, yeah. All very, very good ideas. And what about from this side? Food business and coffee? Okay. Whereabouts do you live? Do you live in the Glenorchy municipality, the Hobart municipality, the Clarence municipality? How would you describe where you live? Glenorchy? That's where I live. Great suburb. Glenorchy? Chigwell area? Okay. The reason I ask you that is because before you start any business, you need to have a look at the businesses that already exist. All right? Sorry. Because I think you have a very big advantage in some areas. So if we look at coffee shops, there are a lot of coffee shops, yes? But do they make the coffee the way you're thinking of making the coffee? So for example, my parents lived in Papua New Guinea for a while, and Papua New Guinea makes coffee beans. They grow the coffee beans, and we used to buy the Papua New Guinean coffee because it has special flavour. But to make it, you needed to understand how to to make the coffee, cook the beans, all of those things. So you may have some advantages there. But one of the realities with coffee is there are a lot of competition. So what you would probably be looking to do is, where can you add value? What can you do to make it different to attract the customer to you? Can I get you? Yeah, beautiful, thank you. So my wife she was born in China, in Harbin, in northern China, but she's actually Russian Ukraine. So when she came to Australia with her family, they all sort of lived very close by. They worked together. And we often find that if I have a product to sell or the community needs a product, they ask one of us to find that product, and then we can sell it into our own communities, which is an advantage. So for example, I get asked all the time for Tasmanian honey. So I'm not sure if you like honey, but the Russian community loves honey. So I buy 29-litre buckets of honey and I send it to New South Wales, and then it's distributed amongst the community. Every time I sell that honey, I can make some profit. So why do I share that with you? Because this slide here has some key points that I wanted to share with you this morning. The first one is accessing your networks. If you are wanting to start a business, some of the best customers you will get will be the people that you already know, whether they're from within your own cultural community group or from your wider friendship group or wider business network. They're the people that you can target straight away. So if you want to have a coffee shop, have a restaurant, they're the people that you would think about targeting for your business. But to do that, you need to know who they are. And you need to write it down so that you can think about how best to let them know about your new business. The other really important thing here is this one here about building relationships. So depending on the type of business idea you have, that may influence or impact some of the relationships you start to build. So they could be with customers, they could be with suppliers, they could be with people who can give you business advice, and I'll talk more about that later. But they could be people who just can be your mentor or your coach, someone you can go and talk to when you're not sure about something or you need to better understand something. An example of that is the Tasmanian government has a service known as Enterprise Services Tasmania. Have you heard of that before, or is that a new one? No, new one? Okay, so Enterprise Services Tasmania is set up by the Tasmanian government. And if you have a business idea, or if you already have a business, you can access 5 hours of free business support. What they mean by that is you don't get money, but you get access to free business advice. So accounting advice, business planning advice, marketing advice, whole range of services, but 5 hours for no cost, which is a very good advantage, particularly if you're going to start a business for the first time. Yeah. But before you go to talk to them, and you can make an appointment, Jade has the contact details so we can share with the communities. But before you go and talk to them, I would suggest that you have a very clear idea about what sort of business you want. So for example, you said today, maybe import some goods from your home country or open a restaurant that specializes in your cultural food. As an example, I think they're both great ideas. We just have to unpack those ideas a little bit and understand what it looks like. For example, if you start a restaurant, do you want to start a small restaurant, big restaurant? That depends on many factors. I'll let you translate and then I'll go again. Yeah. So for example, if you wanted to open up a small restaurant that specialized in your particular cultural food, and we love new cultural food, okay? There's so much more different choices in food now in Tasmania than when I got here 31 years ago. We didn't have a lot of culture differences, a lot of European culture, not so much Asian culture, African culture, and so forth. So I really like the fact that we have more choice now, and we are getting more choice of, and we get a chance to experience the flavors and the tastes of food that's familiar to you maybe, but new to us. But also too, we get a chance to visit and experience some of the traditions and some of the cultures. But before you open a restaurant, for example, there's some things you need to know about. And in Australia and Tasmania, we have things around food safety, food storage. You'll probably have to sign a long lease to rent the building. The building has to have certain approvals from the council. So there's many, many rules. So I guess one of the things is to be aware of what some of those rules are. And this one here, we can get really good information by seeking advice from people that can give you that information. So rule number one, don't sign anything. No signing anything until you get the advice you need. The other thing that's really important is to have a bit of a plan about how your business what it might look like, who your customers are, what your products might be, how much you will charge for your product, so that you know whether you're getting enough income to cover cost. And the goal is always to make some profit. But in the very beginning, when you start a business, sometimes if you can break even, that's good. But you don't want to not break even. So you have to look very carefully at what we call forecast. So, you know, how many meals will I sell? How many coffees will I sell? And how many coffees do I need to sell? How many meals do I need to sell to break even or make a small profit? It's very important you do this before you go and seek some of the advice, because you need to know whether your business idea is one that will work. So there's lots of resources that you can access that don't cost anything. So business plan template, marketing templates, they all exist. But the other side is, if I can ask this question, do you all use social media like Facebook or WhatsApp or something like that? Or not? Yes? Yeah? Okay, so if you've got a business idea, what you can do is use the technology to talk to some friends privately using social media. Say, hey, I just had this idea. Do you think it's a good idea? Hey, if I do this, what sort of products do you think I should sell in my restaurant? Or what type of coffee or what type of cakes or what sort of product for my own country can I bring here that might sell? So you have access to your community. So sometimes the community is from your cultural community, but try and access the wider friendship community as well. And you can do little tests to see what they like. Maybe seek what they suggest. Test out the idea, because the more work you do in this area before you take the next step, usually you get a better business outcome for yourself. You'll soon know whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. Yeah, that's, I'm going to work that one. Yeah, so thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm suggesting and encouraging you to do is, if you have a business idea, ask your friends. And when you walk down the road, you have an idea, send them the message as you go. You don't have to sit down and think really hard about this in the beginning. You can think about it over time, because if you do that, then you'll start to imagine what might be possible. An example is, if I'm going to bring goods from overseas to Tasmania, how do I know the Tasmanian community might be interested in those goods? Until we do research, until we start to understand what the community might like. Likewise with food, coffee, doesn't really matter. I import and export and send goods from Tasmania to the mainland every week. Sometimes the goods are very, high demand, and sometimes repeat. Sometimes they try once and they go, no, I didn't like it. We just have to try and test. So before you start your business ideas, you need to test the business idea to see whether it makes sense or has some demand. And then what we can do is then take the next step. And I'll talk about the next step in a second. So I'll let you translate first.
He's asking before you try all these things.
Yes.
You need a license to start.
Okay, so it's a very good question, and before you start, do you need a license? So what I'm suggesting is you find out, do the research first, and when you have your business idea, then you take the advice to work out whether you need a license. Because if you're doing food, for example, you have to have special permits. The building needs special certificates. If you have coffee, you still need to have food safety checks and things like that, which is checking. Whereas if you're going to import something from overseas, if the goods are allowed to be imported, you can start straight away. Just be remembering that goods over 1,000 Australian dollars are subject to GST. And if it's a business, then you will have to pay the tax anyway. So sometimes we say, contact your friends and send small parcels to start. And then when you can see that it is a business, then obviously you take it to the next level. But you have to be aware of your tax obligations. But that's not a license. That's everyone has to pay their tax. Yeah. Yes. So I'll just recapture. The lady here wasn't aware you could do business from Tasmania to the mainland. Australia to Australia, we can just operate our trade normally. Some of the areas that you have to watch for if you're sending stuff from Tasmania to the mainland, if it's large quantity, is the freight. The cost of getting it from Tasmania to the mainland can be quite expensive at the moment. But we do have a number of freight carriers. So if you ask around, you can get a very good price. I'll give you an example. So at the moment, we send a range of Tasmanian product. So honey being one, we do fish, Tasmanian caught fish, abalone, finfish, scallops, oysters, squid, okay. We have to send that through what we know as cool chain, so like it's frozen. So that's one type of logistic. We used to pay 40 cents a kilo. Now we pay 80 cents a kilo, but we've managed to negotiate that back a little bit to about 55 cents a kilo. So, and it's only because of the pandemic at the moment. It's just harder to move some goods, but you can send it across Tasmania product to mainland. So you may have friends or family on the mainland. You can send it, and it's very easy to do. Just have to look carefully at the cost. That's the critical thing, because you have to use approved carriers, particularly if it's cool, so not frozen but cool, or frozen. So we send fruit and vegetables cool chain, not frozen. We send our fish product frozen, except for Tasmanian salmon, which is all sent cool. Sorry to do that to you. So can I ask you all a question? How many of you have friends or family on the mainland? Friends or family in mainland Australia? What? Yeah, yeah, they all do. Remember what I was saying about accessing your networks? Okay, you can do it slowly by looking at where your friends and your family are, for example. So on my wife's side, on the mainland, they're in Queensland, they're in Geelong, they're in Sydney, and it's hundreds of people. So those buckets of honey goes to hundreds of people. Okay, so it's just a small thing that can actually start into making you some small profit, which then allows you to take your idea, your business idea, even higher. So when you're thinking about this, I really like your suggestion about accessing maybe some of the friends and family on the mainland, because Tasmania product is really well sought after. Like, it's highly desirable because the quality and the taste, and we have a few things that are a little different to the mainland. And at the moment, we have people paying us a premium to send our product to them because they can't get it normally at the moment because of the pandemic. I'll let you explain and then I'll give you an example of that. Yeah. So for example, when the pandemic came in early this year, my company started a new business, and we started a seafood business. Who would normally start a new business in the middle of a pandemic? Not many people. Business, a new company, we opened up a new offer in the middle of a pandemic. Why would we do this? Many years ago, I used to work in engineering, so I used to design and set out and build the tall buildings and the bridges and things like that. And one of the developers we worked with left me with a message that has traveled with me all my life. He said, I build when things go down so that when things go up, I can sell and make more profit. That's why we've started a new company and opened a new office, because we truly believe that in time things will settle down and we will be at the right place at the right time. In the first 3 months of opening our new seafood business, we made 6 figures. So we made more than $100,000. And you know what we did? We sold seafood to mums and dads in Sydney and Melbourne because the fish markets were shut. They couldn't access the fish market. So we sold our product, Tasmanian product, straight to mums and dads, to families. At the same time, we supported the Tasmanian fishermen and the Tasmanian processor and the Tasmanian freight supplier. So because of the new business, we supported all of those people, and we found market because people couldn't access the product in any other way. So my suggestion is that you have to sometimes think outside the normal square, like look outside this box, think outside and look at where you might find opportunity. And it could be food, it could be trade, it could be coffee. But I've got another point that I would like to explore with you in a second, but I'll let you translate that. And I'm sorry, it was a lot of information very quickly. So I think the time to start a business is very good because things are already down. So any business that you create now that can survive, can come up, generally means it has what we call sustainability. It is a good business idea. Okay, so I think it's a really good time to be looking to start a business, but start a business with what we say small target, just small target. Don't start a business that's too big in focus. Just keep your target narrow, because over time you can grow your business so the target can get bigger. Okay, but the important part is not to lose money. Okay, break even in this time is okay. Small profit is better. I'll let you.
I have a difficulty here.
Sure.
Because I'm interpreting two languages.
Yeah, oh, okay. Oh, no, it's fine. There's no pressure. Yeah, you take time because it's important. Okay. The key message is don't make a decision without doing the research and without taking some advice. But before you take the advice, you have to have, your idea has to be clear. That's the critical bit. Parking meter. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a different question now. How many of you are currently working for someone? No? And what are you doing at the moment, sir? Would you be able to share the sort of work that you're doing? For who? Life Raft Australia? Building. Yeah, okay, I know the project. Okay. You're very lucky. Hard to get into that one.
Yeah, in addition, he's an artist.
An artist.
So at home,
Yeah.
they have so many products.
Okay.
That is what we
So if we take this gentleman's, like you're working, and then you go home and you're the artist. Okay. Yes. I have a business in my mind already. How do we, does anyone know about your products? No. Okay. When you're ready, promote your product, because that could be the start of a new business for you. If it's something that you, I have one rule in business: have fun. Fun. You've got to enjoy what you do. Cooking, I don't want a business in cooking because I love to eat. But I do like doing this sort of work because I get a lot of personal satisfaction. So I have a lot of fun because I get to meet people from different backgrounds and cultures. But I also learn so much from you. You give me, hopefully I give you something, but I find me always much more than ever I feel like I can give to you. But the key message in business is to enjoy what you do, have fun, okay? But don't do something that puts you at risk. Personal risk, financial risk. So I have, yeah, no, that's fine. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So if I was to look at your business, sir, with your art, for example, a few years ago I was with an artist and I helped him to have his very first public exhibition of his art. Do you know where we had it? We had it at the Moona Art Centre. Yeah. Okay. The Moona Art Centre is usually very supportive of up and coming artists, depending on the type of art, yeah, whether it's sculpture or painting or local in Auckland area, Moona Art. If, for example, you needed some help and things like that, I worked closely with the local member, Liz Archer, for example. So she helped us into the art centre. So there are people that can work with you as an individual or as a community group to support maybe your art, but maybe there's some other artists here, and maybe we can bring you all together to showcase the artists. That builds awareness of the art and the style, but it also draws people to you if you're thinking of starting a business in this area. If you're interested in, oh, sorry, sir, please continue. Ah, okay. If you're interested in starting a restaurant or a cafe, from each year, there's usually some sort of multicultural food event where you might go along and you might cook and share your food or your other business ideas, such as the coffee or perhaps special desserts or whatever it might be. And what you can do is you can get a sense of whether people have interest in your food and your style of cooking, but it's also a way of growing outside of your natural communities, because one of the things is that people won't know that you have something wonderful until they can see it, until they're aware of it. And we, as individuals, we all have something to share. And in business, what we have to do is work out how we can let people know about our product or our service. So each year there's usually a food festival for cultural groups. So for example, we have a Greek one, an Italian one, and I'm pretty sure that there's a Taste of the World. That's the one I'm thinking of. Thank you. Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking. Perhaps we say take a small step to test out what you're thinking. And to do that, it's good to have maybe a business name, some sort of brand, but it just gives you a bit of a chance to test your business idea. So I'm going to introduce one more small idea, and then I'm going to ask you to do something for me, if that's okay. But you'll only have to do it if you feel comfortable. So the first thing is, this is my belief. My belief is the fact round of opportunities exist. And what we mean by that is, what can you make that people want? What can you provide that has a good value proposition? So what we mean is, what can you make, or what service can you provide where you can make profit? But in order to make the profit, people need to want what. So art, sculpture, design, great. Food, great. But there are other things that you could consider doing. So for example, in my world, we're investing in some new crop. The crop will give us fibre to make clothes and other things. The crop will also give us the ability to make a particular tea, and it also allows us to take the seeds for eating for good health. And we're doing a trial this year to see whether it will work. If it works, then we will take the idea and make it much larger. And introduce a whole new manufacturing sector. We're always trying things. So in your context, so it's specific to you and the things that are important to you, maybe think about micro manufacturing, something you can make that people want, that can bring you some income, some profit. I'll be blunt. Profit. Profit is the thing. if you choose to take on a business. Just got a little bit of time left before we break for morning tea, but what I wanted to do is just ask you if you have questions. If you would like to ask, you can ask me anything. I will honestly respond to you. But if you have a question or something that you want to know about now, please feel free to ask it. If you're comfortable, and if you're not comfortable asking in the group, of course, come and talk to me with your translator in the break. I'm very happy to talk with you privately, one-on-one. But there is a benefit by asking your question in the forum like this, because your question might actually help someone else in the group about something that they're thinking before we break morning tea. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. I want to ask you why you believe in micro manufacturing.
Yep.
And what are the driving forces? And if you could just explore that.
Sure.
Expand that a little
Sure.
bit,
Sure.
give a specific example.
Sure. Sure. So what I'll do is I'll give you this. If we look around the world right now, because we've had a pandemic, we found it hard to source many things. We can't travel. The number of ships going backwards and forwards around the world has got less. In the beginning, we couldn't source our own masks, enough masks and enough the hand sanitizer, for example. Okay, so people that made gin, for example, then started to make hand sanitizer for us because they had the equipment. That's an example of micro manufacturing. They saw a gap and they filled that gap. The gap is now sort of calmed down because there's a lot of hand sanitizer in the world now. We caught up. But I think we need to be more sustaining in and of ourselves. And that's why I believe micro manufacturing has a very strong place. I will give you an example of something that we are doing as a company. Okay, so I'll talk about myself because it's better for me to do that than to talk about another company because I don't always know the details. So we have 1 hectare of industrial hemp. Okay, so not for smoking, for clothes making, for fibre, for rope that we're trialling. The license cost me nothing. I had to apply, but it cost me no money to have a license to do industrial hemp in Tasmania. I had to have a land site where I could do it, and I have to have the equipment to farm it. Okay, so I already had a land site. I found a farmer who will work with us for nothing. He's going to work as our partner to do the trial. So the only cost to me to see whether this micro manufacturing idea works is the cost of the seed and the cost of the fertilizer to put in the dirt. Everything else is being done collaboratively. If it works, we can grow it bigger, then we can create a manufacturing sector, micro manufacturing sector for industrial fibre, food, and building materials from Tasmania, potentially to mainland Australia. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, so I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is, but the essence of what I'm saying is when you start something new, low cost or no cost is the secret. So all I had to do is fill the paperwork in and prove that I was a good person, answer all the questions honestly, and I got my license. So it's a research license. And once I conduct my research trials, I can transfer it into a full commercial license to go larger. But this is a very new sector for me, so I have to go step by step.
I'm looking for a job at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about business also, job.
Yeah.
How can I do that?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. A lot of presenters have already presented on that. Aged care, disability, agriculture, horticulture. Yeah, sure, yeah, yep. Yeah. So before I ask this group for a question, just one thing, a couple of things. Firstly, this gentleman here is working as well as doing something he likes doing, which could be a business. That's not uncommon to work and for someone else for a little while, get some money while you set up your business. So, you know, if that's the direction you want to go, then many people do that. The other side is that in previous presentations from some of the guest speakers that I've attended, they've spoken about where the jobs are. Okay, so the jobs predominantly are aged care, disability, horticulture, agriculture. And so sometimes to go off and work in those sectors for a little while, get some skills, you can then take those skills and we say transfer them back into your own business. So there's no one path. It's not right or wrong. It has to be, you have to feel comfortable with the journey that you take. So I'll let you translate, and then can we just one maybe question from this table just to make sure we are fair? Yeah. Okay, so do you have a question? Can the government, okay, so we've got a question. Can the government help with loans? Land? Yeah, quite hard. So in Australia, we have a thing called Crown land. So Crown land is land that's owned by the government. So my response would be if the gentleman found some Crown land, that he might be interested in doing something on, he could contact the government agency, which is through the lands building, and make the inquiry that way. Because I do know the Crown land people from time to time will allow you to lease the land if it is in accordance with their rules. Yeah. So I actually don't lease land from the government, but I lease water. So I have a marine farm and I lease the water so that I can grow my shellfish. And every year I pay a small rent. Yeah. Yeah. So the brochure that I gave you is for Business Tasmania. This is the government's official contact if you're thinking about starting a business or you need some business advice. But my strong suggestion would be clear about the idea you have for a business before you go to talk to them. And the reason for that is because you will then get the best possible value out of the free time that you get with them. But again, always remember, build on your relationships, access your networks, and always seek the right advice. So these guys can provide you with some free guidance, some free advice. But again, I strongly suggest before you go to these guys, think about that business idea. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to other people, test it out. Maybe use the social media as I suggested. Go and try it out at a few events like Moona Arts Centre or a Taste of the World, a Food of the World, Taste of the World, because there's always some possibility here. And when we see Salamanca market open up, for example, if you go to Salamanca market, the Hmong people occupy a lot of the vegetable stallholders. You know, they grow the vegetables and sell it at the market. They've done it for years. When I first got to Tasmania, there's just a few, and then it just grew exponentially. They found an area that they're passionate about and they're very good about, and they are now obviously doing pretty well.
First of all, they just had backyards or in church grounds,
yes,
somewhere where they could. And there were over 30 or 40 families, 27
that's right.
And there's some Karen from the Burmese community who
Yeah.
also work in that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And not just Salamanca, there's also once a month, whether it's opened up, I'm not sure, Sorrel Market,
Yes.
Rim Creek Show or other.
Signet. So there's many places that you can try. Yeah. 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 Sorry? Loan facility. From time to time, the government announces grants or loans, but to talk about the grants or loans, you really need to watch for them. because they're often for particular things. So at the moment, some of the loans are for existing businesses because of the COVID problem. So it's to keep the business alive. But if you watch from time to time, they do have some loans. Grants is what you want. Loan you have to repay, grant you don't repay. Okay. I'm going to wrap.
I should say that this program.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. 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 So for example, this program's a grant, okay? So it means that it's all funded to help the communities, and it's not a loan, it's money that's being given to run these workshops as the first stage to allow this sort of connection to happen. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm just conscious of time. I would like to thank our 2 translators very much. So thank you, our translators. Amazing job, and hopefully I didn't cause you too many problems. Thank you to our facilitator, but most importantly of all, thank you for turning up today. I'll be available in the break if you want to come and ask me anything. Please feel free, or if you think of something after, just access Jade, who's coordinating everything, and I'm happy to talk independently or with a small group outside of the session. Okay. But thank you very much for turning up today. A clap for you.